Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Fighting Zika with Location-Based Intelligence, Putting the Pieces Together. I'm Chad Mintier, the Mobile GIS Software Solutions Manager for Electronic Data Solutions. Joining me today also is Ryan Pearson, the Vector Solutions Sales Manager. Today's webinar will be recorded. It'll be 25 minutes long with 5 minutes at the end for questions. As we go along, please do put questions in the questions panel in GoToWebinar, and we'll have time at the end to talk about those. We can also follow up with you after the webinar if you have more in-depth questions. As many of you may know, Electronic Data Solutions has more than 10 years of experience with working with GIS-based vector control software solutions. Many of you use the FieldSeeker GIS or Sentinel GIS software solutions that we have. We don't want to assume that everybody on the call knows all about us or about Esri. Esri is the world leader in GIS technology, and Esri recently began promoting a vector control business solution with a variety of applications. We'll be talking a little bit about some of those applications today, and we can talk a little bit about how they may fit in with your existing operations. This is part one of a two-part webinar. A future webinar will discuss more in depth how that vector business solution compares to FieldSeeker GIS and Sentinel GIS. One thing that we might ask before we go into the rest of the webinar is just whether you currently use any kind of mapping in your operations. If you would take just a minute and answer that poll, yes or no. And this doesn't necessarily have to be Esri mapping at this point, just any kind of mapping, electronic, paper, or otherwise in your operations. Okay, most people have voted already, and overwhelmingly the answer is yes, which makes sense. Using your resources wisely entails often using mapping. So 94% have answered yes, 6% have answered no. One follow-up question to that would be, do you currently use Esri GIS in your operations? Okay, and as the votes come in there, it's kind of evenly split, about 50-50 yes and no. So far, about 70% have voted, and it's about half and half split. Okay, thank you for answering those questions. And we can assume there that a lot of the mapping that people use, that you all use, might be consumer mapping, Google Maps, etc., just whatever works for getting the job done. Okay, I'm going to close that poll. So one point we want to make as we look at some examples of how location-based intelligence can work is that most local government already has Esri, and in particular ArcGIS Online. Most local government already has that Esri platform. You may just need to ask about it inside your organization to be able to have access to it. What we will be showing today are a few of the out-of-the-box or included or free apps that come with that platform that can be used with your existing operational system or can be used standalone. So sometimes you may be able to take advantage of using these free, already available apps without having to purchase anything additional, and you may be able to stand up some of these solutions relatively quickly in a matter of days. Another point we want to make is that we're looking at this as puzzle pieces. Some people may start with absolutely nothing and be looking at building an entire solution, but more likely you already have operational systems in place of one kind or another, whether it's FieldSeeker or Sentinel or something else or something homegrown. And so what we want to be able to show is that you can add on pieces of this business solution to work with what you already have. We'll look at a few examples, and I'll talk about a couple of these here, and then we'll just show some demonstrations of some of these applications. We kind of have it broken down into kind of three broad categories: public information, operational intelligence, and then efficient fieldwork. And so in the category of public information, this can include things like status maps on your website, service request input on your website, something that Esri has called Crowdsource Reporter. Some of you have previously seen the GeoForm, so basically just a map-based way of inputting service requests and then reviewing them in your operation. An interesting example we'll take a look at also is this social media monitor. So being able to monitor in your district or in your area of operations what kind of public talk is happening on Twitter and YouTube and Flickr in regards to whatever keywords that you put in. As far as operational intelligence goes, the solutions that we've provided for a number of years, such as FieldSeeker and Sentinel, have focused pretty intently on efficient fieldwork, recurring visits to larviciding locations, capturing just operational data. But whether you're using that system or your own or some other brand, being able to see things like dashboards and heat maps is always very helpful in getting a quick view of what's going on currently in your operations. Particularly in response to the public interest in the Zika issue, you may be getting a lot more requests from the public, and so your operations may have changed from previous years in regards to how you respond to the volume of calls or so forth. So being able to have a good idea of what's going on and reacting quickly is important. One thing that we'll also highlight in an example application is the included data that comes with the Esri platform, something called the Living Atlas. So being able to quickly look at things like environmental data, weather data, and demographics to be able to target which areas of your operation or which areas of your geographic coverage to focus on. And then with regard to smart fieldwork, we'll take a look at two applications in the Esri platform, one called Workforce for ArcGIS and the other Navigator for ArcGIS. This is a very focused application to assign work to field crews and to be able to see the level of the number of assignments that they have and see where they're at in your coverage area so that you can efficiently assign work to them. And then the Navigator app is basically for routing and street directions. So let me switch to some applications here to show. So in the Workforce application, we're looking at the Workforce Dispatcher. And again, this Workforce application is a standard app that comes with the ArcGIS platform. What we're looking at is the office view. So someone answering phones or someone assigning work would be looking at the calls coming in and then be able to select various issues and assign them to a particular person. It shows how many assignments each person currently has. And then, of course, this is all map enabled, so we can click on things and it'll zoom to them on the map, and we can see whether there are issues in progress or what's going on in the area. So in association with whatever other operational data you have, such as no spray zones, larviciding sites, trap sites, and the like, being able to assign work that's high priority, this is what this application is designed to do. And as you can see, it not only shows the work that's assigned, it also shows the location of my field crews. And so my entire field crew is sitting in the office right now, and so maybe I'd want to go see why that is. It also shows the assignment leveling. So I can take a look at how many assignments each of my field workers has and try to balance things out. Now, as I make those assignments on my mobile application, Workforce shows me what's assigned to me. I can see that on a map, or I can see it as a to-do list. And as I click on, tap on one of those features, it gives me some information about it. I can make notes on that assignment. I can also start the assignment. So it says assignment started, and then when I'm finished with it, I can finish it. One of the neat things about this application is how it ties in with the Navigator application. So as I hit the little call-out menu here, I can have this switch directly over to Navigator, or to Esri Collector, or to Esri Survey 123. So all of those are standard applications that are available for the iPhone and an iPad. So I'm going to have this switch over to Navigator, and it'll automatically find directions for me. I could go ahead and start navigation, and then once I get to that, location, then I can switch back to Workforce and record that I'd completed the assignment. A couple of things about this Navigator application and Workforce. The Navigator application does let you work online or offline. So the data for the streets for an entire state, you can take that offline. So it doesn't matter if you have cell coverage or not, which is important in some areas for mosquito control. And then with regards to the Workforce application, that currently is in beta, but is slated for release at the Esri user conference here coming up later this month. So those are just a couple of examples of efficient fieldwork, and like I said, this Workforce app could be put alongside existing apps that you already use. One other thing we want to look at is using the data that comes with ArcGIS Online. So I'm just looking at a basic web map. I'm going to add in a file that I have that is tire sites for an area. So we're going to look at this as an example of trying to find efficient tools for helping us decide where we want to focus our field efforts. So if we are really responding to either a Zika travel case or, heaven forbid, an actual locally transmitted case, then we're probably going to have to go and do a lot of door-to-door neighborhood sweep type work. And so in those cases, where do we focus our efforts? One of the things that we can do besides adding in our own data is use the Living Atlas to search for things such as demographic information. So if I wanted to bring in a layer representing average household income, and I've already done that, but I just wanted to show where that's coming from. Also, things like population density. So the U.S. population density, I can add that in. So I've already added those layers into this particular map, and I'm going to turn them on. And what we'll see here, average household income in this case is represented with darker colors being lower income. And then population density, we turn that on. We have that represented as higher density being a darker color. So we can quickly see areas of overlap and neighborhoods where those potentially overlap. So there's high population density. We've got some tire sites. Maybe some of these would be areas where we would focus our attention on doing some field work. So some of this kind of information just helps with decision making. And like I said, it can tie in with your existing kind of workflows with existing applications that you use. Right. Let's take a look at just one more example of an out-of-box app, and this is the social media monitor. Many operations have a public information officer, and even if they do not, many of you work basically in public information, answering requests from the public. And so you're dealing with people who are calling you or emailing you or otherwise contacting you. This application, though, lets you monitor social media in your area to find out what else people might be talking about on YouTube and Flickr and Twitter. And so it shows on the map what's going on, and you can decide what kind of keywords you want it to search for. And so as we click on some of these YouTube links, we see that there are videos having to do with mosquito control with links. And right now, some of these Flickr photos are probably just about various bugs, probably not having a lot to do with mosquito control, because we see that the keyword includes just insect. But how this could be useful, this might be a way to find out other organizations that are putting information out in your area that you could collaborate with. It also might show things that people are talking about with each other that they might not be reporting to you. So it might help identify hotspots, and in any case, just keep a finger on the pulse of what people are talking about. So what we showed was only very briefly an example of some of the out-of-the-box apps that come with ArcGIS Online. The Esri Vector Control Business Solution includes several others as well. We didn't want to jump through 15 different apps in 20 minutes, but we are interested in finding out if you would like to learn more about the Esri Business Solution in a future webinar. So I have a couple of additional polls. One, would you be interested in attending a webinar that goes into more depth on that Esri Business Solution? And so we will set one up in the next few weeks as a help to us in also determining the exact content. A couple of additional polls for you, and appreciate the answers on this one. Most of you are interested in that. Related question: are you interested in seeing how the pieces of this Esri Business Solution might fit with your existing applications? So for the most part, we're assuming that people already have some sort of applications in place, although that's not always the case. So I appreciate the input on this one. Most of you are saying that you would be interested in that. And just one more question for those of you that use either FieldSeeker or Sentinel would be, would you like to have more information on how the Esri Business Solution compares to FieldSeeker and Sentinel? As you can tell, we're not seeing this as a necessarily replacement for any of the systems that you have, but more of an adjunct. Okay, so appreciate the information there, those of you that have voted in the polls. So we'll close that poll as well. Okay, so we do have time for questions. Let's see what questions that have come in on the question panel and go to webinar. So one question is, will this be available for a podcast once done? Definitely. This will be recorded, or this is being recorded, and so shortly after the webinar closes, all of you will receive an email with a link to the recording. Okay, let's see if there are additional questions about some of the content. And while we're waiting for any more questions to come in, on the GoToWebinar panel, there are also 3 handouts. One of them is the Esri Vector Control Solution White Paper. Another is an Esri brochure with regard to fighting Zika with GIS. And then another is just our mosquito control product brochure. That white paper discusses in more detail some of the things we showed, as well as additional applications. Okay, checking the questions. No more questions have come in currently. So we're running a few minutes ahead of schedule. We'll be happy to spend some more time in the future webinar discussing some of these things in more detail. Also, if you're interested in taking a closer look individually, we can help with that. Some of you may be going to the Esri User Conference. We will be there and have a booth, so we'll look forward to seeing some of you there. One more question has come in: can we add our own data server side? And the answer to that is yes. The Esri ArcGIS Online applications, web maps, etc., can make use of data that's either hosted in ArcGIS Online or that is on your own server. So if you already have ArcGIS server, ArcGIS Online can be used in conjunction with that. Okay, no more questions have come in currently. So we do appreciate your interest and attention this morning. We did want to keep this brief, and we'll look forward to inviting you to a future webinar coming up in the next several weeks. Thank you and have a nice day.